Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Premier Injuries Daily Roundup. I hope you had a great Christmas. It seems like a lifetime since we last spoke. And of course, I want to provide a roundup of all of the key injury talking points from game week 17. We have game week 18 just around the corner, and then it's a quick turnaround for game week 19. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. All injury updates will be going out through the socials at Ben Dinnery and at Premier Injuries. And of course, you can always check out premierinjuries.com, and we'll try and get as many videos out as we can to give a little bit of context around those key injury talking points. Now, back to game week 17, although we do have one fixture remaining, that's Manchester United City, taking on Leeds United. Lots of talking points around that Leeds team. However, I am expecting the likes of Liam Cooper, Calf, Harrison, adductor, and also Rodrigo, hamstring, to recover some of those long-term problems. Stuart Dallas, he's had surgery again just to tidy things a little bit up. Lily Sinistera, too soon for him. For Manchester City, the main talking point was a return to overweight return of Calvin Phillips. Pep Guardiola said that he wasn't fit enough to even train with the squad, so it's unlikely for him to be involved. And we also know that Ruben Dias suffered a hamstring injury playing for Portugal. That's likely to keep him on the sidelines for around about a month. Now, back to the game week 17, and of course the big talking point was the injury or setback for Reece James. Now, we heard from Graham Potter ahead of that match against Bournemouth, and he said that the wing-back was in a very good place following that LCL, that lateral collateral ligament knee injury that prevented him from going to the World Cup with England in Qatar. Came through around about 60, 65 minutes in a behind closed doors game against Brentford last week. And the idea was for him to play around about an hour on Tuesday night. Unfortunately, he didn't quite get that far. He felt something. Now, the video footage, the mechanism didn't show a great deal. However, I think the reaction of the player tells us everything we need to know. He almost knew straight away that something wasn't quite right, felt something in there, went down and looked in a lot of discomfort as he unhappily trudged down the tunnel. So we're expecting a number of weeks. He will be assessed over the next 24 to 48 hours. Those evaluations will hopefully help us understand the full extent of that problem. But if it is related to that LCL injury again, then it isn't great news. Indeed, his personal trainer has posted something on Instagram, which was since been deleted, telling that he must keep his mouth shut. He suggested that he wasn't happy with how his client has been handled. But there you go. We also seen the return of Kepa in between the sticks. He had been managing a foot condition, plantar fasciitis. Edward Mendy was omitted from the match day squad. Don't know if that's related to his recent contract snub or not, but he had been on the training pitches. Elsewhere, for Everton, Yerry Mina was forced off with a hamstring-related issue. Now, Frank Lampard hopes that it's more fatigue and cramp that is the issue, and it's not another setback. However, the central defender is likely to make way for Conor Cody. Of course, he couldn't line up against his parent club on Boxing Day, so we're expecting him back. We also could see the return of Dominic Calvert-Lewin in game week 18. If not 18, then 19 is realistic. The Toffees really need his firepower. Closing in on a return, this is more about Frank Lampard just managing the player, being very, very careful. What you don't want, you want to bring him back, and you need Calvert-Lewin fit for the second half of the season. So they don't want to rush him back too quickly and then lose him for another period of time. But like I say, Calvert-Lewin is on the cusp of a return. For Wolves, they got that last gasp victory at Goodison Park. Daniel Podence was forced off in and around that 73rd minute. Fortunately, it doesn't look as if it's anything too serious. Just a knock. He should be fine. For Leicester, our boys, my boys, Newcastle, went down to the King Power, got a great result. But James Maddison, who's been heavily linked to a move to St. James's Park, he was absent from the squad. Indeed, he watched the game from the stands. Now, this relates to a knee problem. It's not the same issue that hampered him while going out before going to Qatar with England. That was presented pain in the back of the posterior aspect of his knee to the lower insertion point, the distal point of his hamstring almost. Now the pain is presenting anteriorly, so on the front of the knee, and so they don't have any clear diagnosis of what is going on with James Maddison's knee at the moment. Those evaluations and assessments are ongoing, which basically means until we can find the underlying root cause of that issue, there is no return to play time frame for him. So at the moment, he remains out of contention, which is a concern, given that Leicester really need to get some points on the board. For Bournemouth, of course, I mentioned the fact that they played on Chelsea on Tuesday evening. They were without Marcus Taverna. Now, there had been a little bit of uncertainty with regards to what was the precise nature of his absence. Gary O'Neill did talk about a sickness bug sweeping through the camp that affected Joe Rothwell, Ben Pearson, but the Tavernier one, that's hamstring related issue. He isn't too far away, and Gary O'Neill said he will meet with the medical department ahead of game week 18 to ascertain exactly where the player's at. But like I say, isn't too far away, although game week 18 might come too soon. Brighton, they had a great result down on the south coast at Southampton. The only one issue that blighted their 3-1 win was the loss of Moses Caicedo. He picked up his 5th caution of the campaign, and therefore he's suspended, so he's out of contention. But we could see Danny Welbeck return to the matchday squad against his former employers. Welbeck and Webster were the 2 most recent injury absentees due to muscular problems. They picked them up in Dubai in a mid-season friendly. Danny Welbeck progressing really nicely, so he has an outside chance of making the squad, but I still do expect Leandro Trossard to lead the Seagulls attack. For Newcastle, we talked about that great result down at Leicester on Boxing Day, and he'd done that in the absence or without Callum Wilson. He was a late withdrawal due to illness. Even up until the day before, there was hope that he would recover in time. He hasn't. So Chris Wood led the Magpies attack, and of course he got that early penalty, converting after Joe Linton had been caught by Daniel Amartey, I think that was. Even if Callum Wilson does recover, I think Chris Wood is going to continue in attack for Newcastle. Certainly Callum Wilson won't be 100%. He come back from his England. He was involved in the Carabao Cup against Bournemouth, but maybe lacks that little bit of sharpness. Haven't had a great deal of football. So I think just given everything what's been going on over the last sort of 4 to 5 weeks, I expect Chris Wood to lead the attack for Newcastle. Manchester United, Luke Shaw was forced to sit alongside Rafael Varane in the heart of the United defence on Tuesday night against Nottingham Forest. That was because, again, there's been a bit of a sickness bug going through the camp. Victor Lindelof was ruled out. We were yet to understand and see where Martinez is. Last we heard from Eric Ten Hag, he said the Argentine was currently celebrating in Buenos Aires, even if he's on his way back to the UK again after all that partying and celebrating. I think it's highly unlikely that he will be involved in the squad, certainly from the start anyway. McTominay is another one, by the way, who was affected by that sickness bug and is out, who was out of that game against Forest. And finally, Tottenham Hotspur, we've seen Fraser Forster in goal in that early kickoff on Boxing Day at Brentford. Hugo Lloris was on the bench following a recent return to training. We expect Hugo Lloris to go back between the 6. And also, we could see Rodrigo Bentancur picked up that adductor problem playing at the World Cup. He is targeting that game against Aston Villa on New Year's Day. And of course, that would mean Basuma making way. Now, don't expect a great deal of rotation and change around these 17 to 18 fixtures. Obviously, the bulk of that, the rest that may come from 18 to 19 with that quick turnaround. So that's going to be one to watch. But like I say, we will be covering everything, whether it's through socials, whether it's on the table, and of course, your injury daily roundups. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, please reach out or pop your comments in the box below. We'll see you again very soon.